Scream 6 is the latest installment in the Scream franchise, and as with every long-lived franchise, the longer it lasts, the less interesting they usually become, and Scream 6 is no exception to that rule. I do want to note that I actually liked the movie, but it wasn't a mind-blowing experience by any stretch of the imagination either. It managed to take the formula it got big on and expanded on it without breaking it, but while watching the movie, I thought, is that enough? Hi, welcome to Rewrite, my name is Pat, and today I'm gonna take a look at Scream 6. I genuinely enjoyed the movie. It was close enough to the standard formula of the original to be a worthy successor and nonetheless managed to implement original ideas to set itself apart. I also liked the new cast and characters. None of them felt out of place, nor did they do a terrible job acting. Returning characters are always nice to have as it legitimizes the continuity. If I'm being honest though, I wasn't too keen on Gale Weathers returning, but it was somewhat inevitable, since there's no one else alive besides Sydney. Therefore adding Qube was a nice touch. Scream 6 had memorable locales, but that's solely due to the chosen setting. The Big Apple, being iconic enough on its own. Scream 5 was mostly held back by its copycat concept, which was needed to properly reboot the franchise without it feeling like an unnecessary sequel. Scream 6 is no longer dependent on that, but the 5th installment revealed cracks in the franchise that unfortunately deepened with the 6th. In Scream 6, when the killers were revealed, I was sorely disappointed. Being a kid from the 90s, I grew up watching the franchise. When I watched Scream 2, I was super surprised when they revealed the killer to be Billy's mother, Nancy Loomis, alias Debbie Salt.
Billy's mother!
And even though the reveal came somewhat out of the left field because she's never been a hugely important character, she was still very prominent in the second movie and had been mentioned in the first.
Your slut mother was fucking my father, and she's the reason my mom moved out and abandoned me.
Therefore, given where the first movie left off, her being the killer was a believable twist. Additionally, she had an, although absolutely unjustified, reasonable enough motive. The movie also provided good reasons as to why Sydney and Gale weren't able to recognize her.
Can't be. I've seen pictures of you.
This is 60 pounds and a lot of work later.
It's called a makeover.
In comparison, the twist in the 6th lacked a believable setup for 2 reasons.
You're Richie's family.
Reason 1. Checking up on a previous killer's mentally unstable relatives is kinda something the overprepared and overprotective Sam would definitely do, but strangely didn't. The movie makes a huge deal out of her obsessive cautiousness that such an immense oversight doesn't seem realistic at all. Granted, Richie probably never introduced her outright to his family, but I still think one way or another she would have encountered his family members somehow, for example, seen on TV, being in the news, on a talk show, and or especially in this day and age, YouTube. If you have a son who replicates famous killing sprees as a hobby and you're a cop, the media is gonna be all over your ass, guaranteed. The family members' identities would have been plastered all over the web without fail. The second reason why it bothered me so much is that Scream 6 takes place on the same timeline as the originals. At first, that sounds terrific, but if you think about it, Sam must be aware of who Nancy Loomis, her paternal grandmother, was and what she had done. Roman Bridger, the third iteration of Ghostface, was Sydney's half-brother, so the familially tied criminal angle comes up yet again. What I'm getting at here is, to think that somebody else would do the same thing isn't too far-fetched of an idea at this point in time. So investigating Richie Keir's family would have been the first thing someone as overly cautious as Sam would have and should have done. And not just Sam, but others as well. Qube is an FBI agent and clearly sucks at her job, as does Gale Weathers apparently, a supposed investigative reporter who lived through 5 of these incidents and yet still failed to investigate Richie's background. These are the 2 main reasons why the reveal felt underwhelming, almost forced. It's been done before and done better at that. Since Scream 6 earned over 100 million at the box office, kudos to them, a Scream 7 will be coming. What I'm personally hoping for is that the writers are not gonna pull a Sam Carpenter half-sister or brother or twins separated at birth out of nowhere and end up repeating the original run, only worse. A simple repeat of the original really isn't what I'm hoping for. Quick tangent, the half-brother twist worked in the 3rd Scream because at that point in time, we knew very little about Maureen Prescott, so having an illegitimate child wasn't too far off. The whole Roman orchestrated everything plotline was a bad decision though. Maureen rejecting Roman should have and would have been enough to push him over the edge. Destroying Billy's and Stu's legacy here was a poor decision. Other than that, the 3rd movie was just okay. Scream's biggest strength is that unlike Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees or Freddy Krueger, anybody can don the mantle of Ghostface. Scream's whodunit premise allows the writers to get creative without having to resurrect an individual indefinitely. Sure, having some form of connection to the previous characters is nice, but if the characters end up being shallow younger replacements of their counterparts, it just gives off the feeling that the producers are doing their best to achieve the bare minimum to keep milking the franchise. That's why I actually like the Chad character, but I'm not very fond of the Uncle Randy character. The change of location was a welcome change. The bodega shootout, the ladder scene and the subway assassination were original and interesting and far more memorable than the pointless murder of a random uninvolved character in an empty parking lot, for example. While I did like the change of location, it also failed to suspend my disbelief every now and then. I don't think it'd be that easy to disappear from a bodega or a subway, and I'm not talking about physically running away from the scene of the crime, but preventing running into other people. That's where a sparsely populated Woodsboro out in the boonies shines, but the hustling and bustling city infested with globe-trotting influencers fails for me on a personal level. Adding the constant surveillance and the overcrowdedness together, and the viewer quickly finds himself debating the believability of the situations portrayed. That's just my take on it though. Story-wise, there's nothing wrong with the movie. The pacing is engaging, it is structurally sound and even had a little bit of character development, which is a plus given that it's an actual slasher flick. The plot twist wasn't set up too well and there's one or the other stupid decision like not going into protective custody and baiting the killer in public instead, but other than that, most of it checks out. There were two things that I felt were underutilized and could have been better used to subvert expectations. Firstly, the underutilized character of Sam Carpenter, more precisely her heritage, especially her Billy Loomis psychosis. It was set up in the first movie but until now hasn't come to fruition. I thought it was a neat and interesting idea to set her apart from Sidney Prescott and could be developed into an interesting new aspect of the movie, but whether she has it or not makes no difference. Secondly, the underutilized plot point of a Ghostface cult. So this point is something where my expectations wildly varied based on what I saw, leading to a very disappointing end. In the trailer, the beginning and the middle of the movie, the Ghostface shrine is full of original pieces. It really made me think that there's an actual cult with multiple deranged people who worship Ghostface. The movie kinda leads the viewers on only to abandon an interesting idea for an underwhelming and unoriginal plot twist. I was disappointed that it turned out to be a Richie's collection provided by his dad. I was fully expecting to see a Ghostface cult with deranged cultists trying to kill Sam and become the true successor. I personally would have loved to see them try to kill Sam and Sam fighting back, while killing them one by one with the help of her dad and being unnecessarily brutal, so much so that even Tara wouldn't recognize her anymore or become scared of her. Basically fulfilling what she's been dreading since Scream 5. Eventually, her final victim pronounces her to be indeed the rightful heir to Loomis' legacy. That's something that I personally would find interesting. It would make use of her psychosis and be an interesting new chapter in the franchise. The concept of the second reboot in Scream 5 was basically to be an homage copy of the first movie rather than to throw out wild ideas in order to see what sticks, like the overly satirical meta beginning from Scream 4. God awful. Not the entire movie, but this bit in particular. The blend of original and copycat worked well to reboot the franchise, and since they accomplished that, there is no longer a need to rely on them. If they want to try out new ideas, these sequels are the time and place to do it. They essentially fix with the re-reboot what people hated about the first reboot. I very much enjoyed the movie. It met my expectations and it did well at the box office. But if the quality dips and the plot twists become unreasonable, I don't know how much longer the franchise is able to sustain itself. I do hope the writers manage to wow me with something original in the next installment. Fingers crossed. And with that said, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, leave a like. I'm interested to hear your opinions on the movie or franchise. Leave them in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more, check out some of my other videos and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming ones. I hope to see you again.